Hello and welcome along to the On the Whistle podcast. I'm your host, Zayn, Nabbi, and joining me today to chop it up after the Springboks won their series 2-0 against Italy, wrapping it up with a 45-0 victory against the Italians in the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium, is my co-host. Yes, you know him for winning the PSL, but he's also a big rugby fan because he came from a small rugby town called Pietermaritzburg. Courtney Freese, how are you doing, my brother?
Zayn, I am on top of it. I am dangerously good, Zayn. Honestly, man, I'm so happy to be here talking box. Can't wait with our very happy guest, Peter, joining us this week.
Absolutely. And joining us live from Doha is the one and only Peter Stemmet, sports presenter at Al Jazeera, one of the gold standards in 24-hour news. And he has one of my favorite rugby channels to consume where I get all my analysis, all my insight. It's Front Row Rugby, which Peter Stemmet hosts. Peter, welcome to the show. It's wonderful to have you on.
Thank you very much, Zayn. That's very, very kind of you and a beautiful introduction. So thank you very much to yourself and also to Courtney.
Absolutely. And we're going to hit the mailbag first. But just before we get there, Peter, it would be remiss of me not to wish you a very happy 30th birthday. I know the Springboks gave you the ultimate gift, but how did you celebrate it in the buzzing metropolis of Doha?
Oh, you know what? I think maybe since I turned 30, as you say, perhaps, maybe 9 years ago it might have been a little bit more raucous. But I'm going to have to disappoint you because turning 21 for the second time, it was pretty much just me on my couch enjoying the sport on the TV, eh?
Honestly, if I can get that gap, that would be a piece of heaven, my friend. I know also with busy work, we all have young families that we have to manage. So when you get those gaps, take them. So, gentlemen, we'll get talking about the Springboks. We're going to give the audience out there our takeaways, our review of the game, our review of the series, and what to expect going forward. But to begin the show, we're going to hit the mailbag. We had some really nice comments last week reacting to some of the clips we put out. One of the clips was from our guest last week, Mama Rugby Dawn Dunn. And Dawn had made the case, very polemically, that the Northern Hemisphere were the biggest losers on the planet, all in the wake of Warren Gatlin's claims of spying by the Springboks. Peter, I'm sure you have some opinions on that. And we had some reactions to Dawn's very, very strong green-eyed comments. And we had Renvin O'Michael, who said, I love this auntie. So happy I came across this. We had Willie Liebenberg, 4186, and he wrote in Afrikaans. So forgive me, I've had to translate this because I come from Durban and we don't speak Afrikaans.
Whoa, there we go. You should give it to me to read. Your Afrikaans is terrible, I know you.
My Afrikaans is terrible. Courtney's heard me speak it, so I won't embarrass myself further. But what Mr. Liebenberg said was, tell the Northern Hemisphere people auntie. We also had Gregory A. van der Merwe, and he said they, obviously referring to the Northern Hemisphere, are certified crybabies. They have been whining for years. It's very annoying. And we also had Trevor McLean Anderson 8803 comment. He was talking about, he was reacting to my comment when I said that Jake White's Springboks of 07 had a very easy run to win that final. Dawn disagreed with me. Courtney disagreed with me. Well, go listen to the clip. They might not have necessarily agreed with me in the way you're thinking. But Trevor said, we had to earn the easy run by dominating the English by 36-0 in the opening game. But you are right. The run after was easy. NZ Oz missed, and that helped. Well, listen, we know you all have thoughts out there. And as I say, please let us know on our social accounts. Post a comment, like and subscribe. We love to hear from you. So, boys, let's just get straight into it. We had a marvelous test to look back on. The Springboks winning their series over Italy with an emphatic 45-0 victory at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium. For me, it stood out for two reasons. One is that the Italians had showed incredible fight in that opening test in Pretoria, where they lost 42-24. And secondly, because Jasper Visser was red carded in the 22nd minute, which meant the Springboks for most of the game were playing with 14 men, and at one point were down to 13 men. Obviously, Italy also had a yellow card, but I'd love to get your takeaways. What did you take from this? And Peter, as our guest, we'll give you the mic first.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Look, I think you're quite right there that Italy probably surprised us, especially in that first test. I think a lot of South Africans maybe not as familiar with the Italians as we would be with say, the English, the Irish, the All Blacks, and so on. Were maybe expecting us to just pitch up and steamroll over them. I watched them closely during the Six Nations, Zayn, and you know what? They're a good side. They don't necessarily get the results. And the problem that they have is that if one thing malfunctions, the whole system can potentially fall apart. So we saw that they got, I think France put 70 points past them. It was game 3 or game 4 of the Six Nations. And they are really not that bad. They've got some decent players. I think we saw that in the series. But the concern that I had was the team that we played was not the team that actually played in the Six Nations. There were 8 players missing. And I thought that the depth that they lack was something that would count against them. Like, for example, their captain, Michele Lamaro, didn't make the trip to South Africa. Dino Lamb, Federico Ruzza, those are the regular locks. I mean, for example, Nicolo Canone was their captain on this tour. But in the Six Nations, he doesn't necessarily make the starting 15, just to give you an idea. Paj Rolo wasn't there, Paolo Garbisi, Ange Capuozzo, Tommaso Allen. And for me, the biggest disappointment was the absence of Nacho Brex. Because believe me when I tell you that, in my opinion, Brex and Menoncello, the 2 centers, if they were South Africans, they would be Springboks. That's how good they are. If they were New Zealanders, they would be...
That's pretty big given our strength and depth, brother.
Absolutely. I think these two, they are the 2 genuinely world-class players that Italy have in their ranks. So obviously Brex wasn't there, Menoncello was, but he didn't really influence the series as much as he might have. I mean, the problem is that if you're at 13, you have to actually get the ball, don't you? And the Italians didn't get a lot of ball. They slowed a lot of ball down, but they didn't actually get much possession, especially in that second test. So I think that they showed that they've got a lot of courage and a lot of fight, and I think that Gonzalo Quesada would have been very happy to see that. But from our point of view, because I think that we're probably discussing more from a Springbok perspective today anyway, I think that the first half in Pretoria, we were good, or at least good enough. First half in GQ, Heiberger, also, it was good or good enough. Second half in Pretoria, I think we fell short of expectations. And second half last night, I would say it was somewhere in that good to good enough bracket. But maybe, I wouldn't say that we were frustrated by the second half performance in the second test, but I think certainly myself, I felt like we could have maybe done a little bit more. And so maybe at the end of the series, despite 2 victories by 42-14 and 45-0, I mean, you shouldn't really be complaining about those kind of scorelines against a legitimately top 10 rugby nation. But I feel like maybe we didn't get everything out of this series that maybe we thought we would at the beginning.
I can only agree with the analysis there, Zayn, but I'll just say this to you. I think we actually got more out of the series. These guys tested us massively. I didn't think we were going to be tested this strongly by Italy. They're a good rugby nation. There's a culture there that's improving, which is good. And I think for a first round, starting your international season, this is a good game to go. I've also got to pick out certain performers on the day yesterday. I don't know what's wrong with Manie Libbok. I really don't know. All of a sudden, he can kick now. I don't know. Something happened to him overnight. But, you know, he's come back from a nasty ACL injury and he's kicking yesterday. I spoke about this last week, spoke about it this week again. Really, really good. I think the Italians have given us more than we wanted. They've given us problems as well. And it's a good way to start off the international season. You know, we don't want steamrolling games. They don't help us in any way, shape, or form. But they've given us a competitiveness. And let's not look at that score yesterday. They didn't get a point. But that was a competitive game. It was enjoyable to watch. And I think Rassie and the team sit back and think to themselves, right, we didn't get what we thought we would, but they've given us problems to work on, which in a way is a lovely place to be in.
I mean, Edwin van der Merwe on the wing looking fantastic form. Kenan Moody outside center, amazing. I mean, the strength and depth of this Boks team is amazing. But one thing I wanted to get to was innovation. I mean, and this has been a hallmark of the Erasmus era, or as Peter will call him, Dr. Rassie Erasmus. What do you make of the kickoff where the Boks intentionally kicked short to get a scrum? Gonzalo Quesada, the Argentine coach, suggesting that he was not impressed by that and felt like his team were being disrespected. And of course, we saw lineouts in open play, which it seems to be like the Paul Roos B team made famous. So, Peter, maybe we'll start with you. I mean, what do you think of some of these innovations and some of these tactics that Rassie put into place on Saturday?
Listen, I think it's great. I think that we should be seeing innovation. A lot of professional rugby players or even professional sportsmen will tell you that professional sport is entertainment. And we want entertainment. And the flip side is that when the Springboks were not doing these sorts of things, when they were just sort of playing it safe, so to speak, just the regular stock standard kind of, let's say, traditional South African rugby, obviously heavy in the forwards and that sort of thing, 10-man rugby was a popular accusation in those days, then that was a problem. You know what I mean? Now we're innovative. We're a little bit more creative, more attacking. At times, I like to call it sexy rugby. Now that's also a problem. And so it turns out that no matter what we do, the critics are never going to be happy. And the critics are always coming from outside of our borders, aren't they? It's usually, let's be honest, it's usually the British media. It's often the Irish media and then the Kiwis as well. I can understand why Gonzalo Quesada would have been unhappy, feeling whatever disrespected, quote unquote, not in the spirit of the game, whatever the case may be. But the fact of the matter is we're going to do what we have to do and they're going to do what they feel that they need to do. And as you said, Zayn, it was clearly a case of we wanted to dominate them up front and let's have a scrum in the first 30 seconds of the match. How can we make that happen? A short kickoff that doesn't go 10 meters. And yes, it was their put in, but it was an opportunity for us to dominate them. As it turns out, we didn't actually dominate them. It took about 4 or 5 scrums before we actually really pushed them back properly. And then obviously when Ox and Chair came on, I mean, we just destroyed them in that very first scrum, and it led directly to a try. That line-out innovation that you mentioned, I thought it was fantastic. The first time that I saw it in the first half, the first reaction was, "Hey, what's that?" And then
a part of me thought, "Is this legal?" Like I've seen it done at schoolboy rugby, but I was like, "Hang on a minute." But
exactly,
go.
Exactly. Is this legal? And obviously, well, it obviously must be because the referee allowed it, right? And okay, it didn't lead directly to a try. But then we tried it again in the second half, nice and early, and it did lead directly to a try. So that was fantastic. And obviously, one of the things that we do well is that maul drive from a line-out. It's a weapon for us, isn't it? We've seen the Springboks score plenty of tries in that fashion over the years. And when you have a weapon that is effective, you should try and use it as much as possible. Obviously, not so much that the opposition work out how to read it and how to stop it and that sort of thing. But if you can simulate what you can do near the touchline, closer to the poles, where there's obviously far less of a chance of you being driven outside of the lines of the field of play, why not? Just by the way, Zayn, I don't know if you can remember last year against the Wallabies in the first test we played them in the Rugby Championship. I forget the venue now. It was it Sydney? Wherever it was. I think it was Sydney. We had a line out, also 5 meters out. But what they did is they threw to the back of the line out. I can't remember who it was who took the ball. And then the front of the line out jumped up. And the backside player threw it back to the front side player.
Yes.
Stretching the Wallabies defense this way. And then we mauled our way over for a try. I think Bongi Mbonambi actually scored that try. So this is just all part of that innovation. And I think it's great to see.
I don't see his point where he's upset by it. I don't see how it offends him. I don't. We are world champions. We're at the top of the pecking order. We are trying to improve the game, also make the game entertaining as well. So the creativity that comes along with it, he's just in the way at the moment. Because if his team had thought of that, sitting in their room, nobody would be, I would not complain by that. Absolutely not. Why would you complain? The very first thing that you said, Zayn, Is it legal? That was the first thing that went through my, can you actually do this? And who starts a test match with a scrum? I was thinking to myself, my gosh, it's like in test cricket, putting a spinner on first. And you think to yourself, why? But Australia used to put Shane Warne in first. Okay, forget Glenn McGraw bowling at 90 miles an hour. No, 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 no. Our biggest asset is our spinner. Our biggest assets, well, one of them is scrumming, is the maul, as you just spoke about, Peter. So let's use our advantages against them. What it also does, it just breaks their concentration. We shouldn't be here at this moment. There shouldn't be a line-out jumper in the middle of the field collect. What is going on? These distractions create moments that create points. So Rassie and the team, because I'm sure it's not only him, and then continue with this chaos you're creating. But Zayn's going to tell you that the example you made about the line-out jump, they did that at school, private schools. Come on, Zayn.
Courtney, listen, I'll take it. So I went to DHS All Boys. DHS, not DHS All Boys, but DHS is not a private school. I can assure you.
Well,
But
Zayn,
we did do it. You're right.
according to the school I went to, everywhere's a private school.
Guys, if I could just chip in there, I think I can relate with Courtney. Listen, the high school I went to, like if you could matriculate before the age of 21, you were doing well in life.
No,
I think the DHS board are going to love you guys because you're like making it seem like this is Hilton or Michael House. So keep going, keep going. But I was going to say I wanted to sort of make 2 points, and I again at the level that I played at, I'm not trying to pretend I was this exceptional level, but the one thing we were always taught at DHS is scrumming is an attitude, right? This is an attitude thing, and I understand what Rassie was doing by saying we're setting the benchmark. We want to scrum, right? We want to get on and we want to get that physical dominance. And last week, Courtney made the point of when he was watching Chasing the Sun, when Rassie said, I want dogs that bite, not dogs that bark. So this was a perfect moment of we're going to bark. And I also remember when I was a referee for a very short time in my life, one of the things that we were taught in the mid noughties was you never want teams to scrum within the first 10 to 20 minutes of a game because it's going to go down and there's going to be fighting. And it was a phase where rugby looked like they were depowering the scrum and they were neutralizing it. Much to the benefit of the New Zealanders and the Australians, actually. But what actually referees were taught to do is to get players to get tired before they have that first scrum. So it takes some of the ferocity out of that. So I think what was very clearly what Rassie was saying is we're not going to let a referee just go if there's a knock-on advantage, play. We're going to hit early and we're going to do this nice and early. So it was wonderful to see that. However, and I know, Peter, I watched your amazing analysis and your takeaways, and you're going to do a deeper dive on that. But one of the points you made in your pod was that you gave, I think, the Springboks a rating of 7 out of 10 for this performance. I'm going to challenge that slightly and say to you, the set pieces for me still didn't look like the finished product. The lineouts got a bit loose in the second half. Like you guys have mentioned, the scrum dominance wasn't there. I mean, what are we getting wrong at the set pieces right now it's not quite at an elite level? Or is it still early days in the fact that this is the third game, only the second test that the Springboks have played?
Peter, please let me jump in there. I'm sorry.
Go for it.
Please let me jump in. Zayn, I love this question. This question is coming down to leadership and management. This question you're actually saying. It's early in the season, Zayn. Early for me. This is why you put games like this up. You don't go and get Argentina in your first game. Okay, this is what I complained about a few weeks ago for the British Lions first game. You don't go and put yourself up against Argentina. What you do, you get yourself against a team where your fluency you're working at the moment will get better a bit later on. So according to me, second test in the international season, these cobwebs we are still working on, but they will eventually get better.
Yeah, I think Courtney's hit the nail on the head there. It's about knocking out those cobwebs. Zayn, I will say that I kind of put myself under pressure. I had to give the team a 7 because last week I gave them a 6. So I couldn't do 6 again. You know what I mean?
Of course.
I mean, if last week was a 6, this week it had to be a 7. I mean, it was better than the previous week. I think the first half performances in both test matches were probably comparable. But the second half, it was chalk and cheese yesterday compared to the week before. I mean, let's be honest, at Loftus, what we saw in the second 40, it was unacceptable. And even, Doc said as much, the word he used was frustrated. And I think we all felt that. And you know what? It's difficult to find fault with a team that has kept a clean sheet. That's another thing. And the fact of the matter is that Italy didn't have a lot of possession. I remember at one stage, I don't have the official stats in front of me, but I do remember with about 10 minutes to go, the graphic came up on the TV. And I think it was something like 62-38, or it could even have been 65-35, something like that, in our favor in terms of possession. So that's what, like I said earlier, they didn't have a lot of the ball, but they did slow a lot of the ball down. And that's something... I mean, I thought that our scrum was okay. I think once Ox came on, it looked a lot different. And I think all of us would agree, Ox is, without a shadow of a doubt, he is the leading loosehead prop, not just in South Africa. I think he's the number one in the world. You got Malcolm there. I think Wilco Low is probably our best 3. So that would be the first choice, as it were, front row. Then you're going to have Eben, probably Loot de Jager. If everything is going the way it should, he should still be the number 1-5. Sia hasn't played. Peter Steff should be 7, and then obviously Jasper, provided he stays on the field for 80 minutes, he's our 8. And I'm having a go. I mean, it's the first time he's been red carded.
Where would you put Snyman, Peter?
I think Snyman is most effective in the bomb squad, coming on in the second half and making a difference. It's almost like Loot is the guy, again, assuming that he's fit. Loot is the guy that softens the opposition up, and then Ergia just comes on and sort of plays them off the park almost. Because, I mean, silky skills for a tight 5 player, doesn't he? But I would think that in terms of our best combinations, Snyman is the guy that comes on for the last 30-35 minutes. In the same sense that Kwagga Smith, you can see how much better he is when he comes on in the second half. I think in terms of a player coming on in the second half and making a difference, Kwagga Smith is the best in the world at that. But if you look at Kwagga when he starts, he's nowhere near as effective as he is when he comes on for that last 30-35 minutes.
No, and I think, Peter, that leads in beautifully to one of the questions I had, and that's, Rassie has been a pioneer when it comes to hybrid players. Kwagga Smith is obviously a premier example of that. And what we're now seeing with André Esterhuizen is that he's fulfilling the role of this hybrid player, which is remarkable to me because he's a backline player who's now doubling up as a loose forward. That's been a project that they've started. It's something they've spoken about at the beginning of the season. 3 games in, how do you think this project has gone?
I like it. It's right up there with that innovation that we spoke about earlier, lineouts, taking short kickoffs to force a scrum, whatever the case may be. And I mean, we've probably not really seen much backline innovation so far from the Springboks in 2025. Last year, we saw a lot of that early on. People spoke about Tony Ball, with obviously Tony Brown being one of the assistant coaches and heavily influencing the way that we attack. And I just wonder if we're not holding something back for the Wallabies and the All Blacks in that specific area of the game. But I realize I'm not actually answering your question here. So André Esterhuizen, I mean, we know that he's a wrecking ball of a 12. Damien de Allende would be the same. I think Esterhuizen is probably more of a power player than Damien is, but Damien probably gives you more in other areas than what Andre the Giant does. But what a magnificent idea. Put him in there as an additional loose forward, at least from a scrum point of view. And then people might say, well, if he's able to scrum, that's all fine and well. But now do you lose a backline player? But what I would say to that is When was the last time you saw a backline line up the way they did when, let's say, we were playing at school, right? Where the scrum half passes to the fly half, he passes to 12, to 13, to the left or the right wing. I mean, the way I'm going would be the left wing, okay? And then the fullback sort of comes around and joins the line. When was the last time you saw that? We don't see it anymore. And the reason is because pretty much for about 5, 6, maybe even more years now, teams in the backline attack in pods. So you see backline players in those pods anyway, whether it's a 3-man pod, sometimes 2, sometimes 4, 5 even, that sort of thing. And that's how teams attack now. And that's the makeup of what we see in the backline. It's very, very rare that you see what I described, the way that we played and the way that everybody played back in the day. And so in that sense, does it really matter if Esterhuizen is packing down in the scrum when it comes to whatever's going to be taking place in the backline?
Sure. Courtney, any thoughts on
Yeah,
and hybrid?
I think the Esterhuizen situation is actually geared at tournament rugby. I think this group of people that Rassie has around him are thinking way ahead. You must remember injuries happen in this game. So if we can have someone that can fill into different positions and play a forward or in the back line, he becomes even more useful. Than the depth we have in the squad doesn't only affect the back line, it affects the back line and the front line. It just gives us multiple options. And let's be honest, he could be there in both those positions. He's that good. So you as a manager start thinking, well, going into a tournament situation, injuries happen, people get hurt. But the depth that we have it has another layer to it. And I think that is just smart management, man. You're just really, really testing him out, getting him ready for later on. Because you could have easily pulled him out and put him back at 12 comfortably. He would have just gone in there, and I think he would have walked through about 4 or 5 people because the man's a wrecking ball. Goodness gracious. I don't know how he moves at that speed, at that weight. Wow. Good player. But I think smart management again.
Yeah, good point on the tournament rugby, Courtney, because I think you've precisely hit it. You've hit that on the head, and we've seen it with the likes of Quagga, Skalk Brits, more in that Dion Fourie. There've been a bunch of different players who they've utilized in that way. I wanted to throw some love to Willie le Roux's way. I think the 8th or the 9th Springbok to get to 100 tests in a remarkable feat. When I first started watching Willie le Roux and the sort of 2010, 11, 12 era, I just remember him being this outstanding wing come fullback who was so fast, so quick, so creative, so exciting to watch. It was like, wow, this guy was like a baller. Like, you know what I mean? If people could imagine, I mean, Quade Cooper, probably Carlos Spencer, like they were baller rugby players. But the Willie that I remembered on the outside back sort of had a bit of Christian Cullen in him, had a bit of Tana when he started out in the 3/4. And I sort of look there to the player that Willie has become, Mr. Dependable, very kicking focused. It's very different to my early memories of him as a player because, boy, oh boy, like he just played the way a romantic would to become a very integral part to the Springbok backbone, not taking away his ability to create, provide assists, how solid he is. Again, if you've watched the documentaries on the Springboks, you see how he's played with injuries in games to keep the Springboks going forward. His versatility on the bench or starting really is of great value to the team. But for me, it's amazing to see his transformation of where he started into what he's become. And that's a 2-time World Cup winner, which is amazing. Gentlemen, not sure who wants to pick up the baton here first, but yeah, tribute to Willie.
I think he's a world-class player.
Oh, sorry, Courtney, you want to go first?
Yeah, listen, excited to talk about a world-class player. World-class player. And I think his game has matured. And this is why he's even more dependable now. Now, he's also got what we say in football, he's got a cultured left foot. He doesn't just swing it. The man knows how to drop the ball with that left foot in very dangerous or advantageous positions. I think he's a top player who also in a high combat sport has managed his body well, that he's got to 100 caps. So you've got to give him a lot of credit for that, Zayn. But just imagine him in the change room for the youngsters coming in now. They should just be absolutely rubbing their hands on his legs and head to take in as much as possible, because you're playing with a legend. We're not just talking about him. The man's a legend. He's playing next to you, and he's standing there in his own right, Zayn. So Willie le Roux, I think he's going for the next World Cup. 100% he'll be in that team, but he won't just.
Oh, that's a big statement at his age. You think he's going to do it?
Zayn, he's still playing now. How many years away are we?
Well, I mean, we were, what, 3 seasons effectively, this year and 2 more.
Zayn, I'm going to say this to you. We spoke about it last week. I'm going to say a player in their 30s, in the 1990s, is not a player in their 30s in this current era.
We're nearly 40.
Well, I remember there was a certain Morne Stain that came back against the Lions and kicked a kick to win us the series.
Skullprints was pretty old as well, to be fair to you, when he won his World Cup. So, yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, so you know what I can say there is, firstly, Willie le Roux, 100%, no doubt about it. He is a legend, right? Turns out he is 35, gentlemen, and he'll be 38. I just checked quickly while you were talking. 35, he'll be 38 at the Rugby World Cup in 2027. Courtney is quite right? A 32-year-old in 1992 was pretty much finished, right? That was the end of your career. But a 32-year-old in 2025, you're almost at your peak, right? And it's not just in rugby. I think it's something that's happened across sport now. You look at tennis, Novak Djokovic, I think he's 38, and he just got to the Wimbledon semi-finals. And yeah, sure, the younger guys are catching up with him maybe, but he's still like legitimately one of the top 5 players in the world, and so on and so forth. What I would say about Willie is my concern about him, and this is where I might differ a little bit with Courtney in terms of him going to that World Cup, excuse me, is he's not first choice anymore. And the way I see it is, if everybody is fit, I'm picking Damian Willemse as my number 1 Springbok fullback. Apelele Fassi might have something to say about that, okay? Awesome. And then you need to factor in that you got Sasha Feinberg and Gomezulu, who can go to 15 if necessary. I'm not a fan of that idea, but he can go there if necessary. Andre Pollard can go there if necessary. You got Quan Horn, who's knocking on the door as well. And so Willie, I would say Willie is probably the third choice fullback at the moment. But taking away that just for a second, just in terms of his legendary status, any Springbok who gets to 100 test matches is a legend, and nobody can discuss or debate that. The one thing about Willie, like you mentioned earlier, Zayn, when he burst onto the scene in the sort of early 2010s, he was this exciting, electric backline player, probably maybe a little bit more of a wing, and then he sort of moved into fullback, I think. But everybody was excited about Willie le Roux. And his vision, I think, is actually the thing that sets him apart from everybody else. He sees things on a rugby field before they happen. And that means that he marshals our attack in the most amazing way. And that is something that I think a lot of people don't actually see, because it's not like a pass or a kick or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just that it's like this instinct that he has that, let's be frank, a lot of players don't even have that, never mind normal guys like us. And that is the thing that Willie brings to the table that I think is so valuable. Yeah. May I also say that with that in mind,
if you were pausing that thought, because I think your analysis was so on the money, because Willie's hit 100 caps, and I was trying to think of another player that he reminded me of, because you were like, he was a wing who was electric. It was Israel Dag. And then you sort of look at Israel Dag. These boys were so creative and their vision was so good. But because Willie was able to modify what he did, he hit 100. Whereas Israel, who still had a great career, World Cup medal, had 66 tests for the All Blacks. And I was just going to say, I think you guys are 100% right, but particularly what you say about vision and how you use it, Peter.
Yeah, Israel Dag, absolutely, one of the great All Blacks. But like you say, he wasn't able to get to 100 tests, right? And let's be honest, a lot of most players don't actually get there, right? But the other thing I was going to say about Willie that I think I would love to see, whether or not he makes it to 2027 or not, I would love to see him at some stage be brought in as part of the coaching staff in the same way that they brought Dwayne Vermeulen in, because I just think that that knowledge and that vision that Willie has, particularly if you think about the back line and attack, I just think that that is something, it would be such a shame to not have that inside the camp. And that's why I say I just think that regardless of whether or not he makes it to 2027, we'll have to wait and see. I think that his future lies in a coaching place within that Springbok setup.
The Springboks have Georgia coming up next. Final thoughts on that, Peter and Courtney?
Yeah, the Georgians are an interesting side. Historically known for their strong forward pack. They put a lot of emphasis on that. But in the last few years, they've tried to change their style a little bit and become more attacking and creative. To the point where their best player now is probably their fullback, David Niniashvili. He's an exciting runner. Obviously we don't yet know the Georgian side for Saturday's test match, but I really, really hope that he's there and that he does get a little bit of ball so South African fans can actually see what he can do and see him in action. Obviously, we don't want to see too much of what he can do, but I mean, regardless, I expect the Boks to win by a very comfortable margin.
I think I've said this a lot in the last two podcasts, saying lovely player management and preparation. A lovely game. The Georgians will give us a lot of combative rugby up front. Yes, they're not a world beater. No, they're not. But there's a good culture of rugby in Georgia. So they will bring something to us that allows us to test ourselves again and also just get ourselves ready. We all know what we're getting ourselves ready for. But I just think, once again, smart management, man. You've got the team gradually getting better with competition that allows you to gradually get better. So you got to respect the team that he will put out and the opposition that are coming through at the moment. I think we'll be ever better for, I say this very respectfully, softer opposition than what we are going to be playing further down the line. I think we should have thrown England in there in the first two games. That would have helped us as well.
Courtney Wind-Up Freese, Peter Stemmet from Front Row Rugby, and of course, Al Jazeera. Thank you for joining us around the braai this week on our Rugby Afrique podcast, one of the strands we do here on The Whistle. It's been a pleasure chopping it up with you guys. We will wait to see what will happen against Georgia, but Peter, you have an open invite to join us on our couch. And for those who want the latest news, analysis, and information pertaining to the Springbok Rugby, please do tune into Peter's channel, Front Row Rugby. You will love it. It's a great experience. And if you can, donate to Peter on his Patreon. And of course, buy that wonderful merch that he's wearing right now. Peter, advertise that hoodie. I want one of those.
Me too.
Here it is, then.
Me too.
All right, guys. Salagashte for now. Have a good week.
Thanks, guys. Cheers, eh?